just going to be looking at judges for the Supreme Court. And of course, we have our own town chairs that we will be voting for. So on behalf of the rule-makers, we have been doing these voters forums for many years now, and we are appreciative that you all came out for this. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. Forum is sponsored by the Rule-Makers Home and Community Educators as a community service to promote education by providing you with the opportunity to get to know the candidates and their positions on the issues. We are not endorsing any of the candidates. All candidates for Rome Town Chair were invited to participate, and they are all here. Written questions were submitted by the public prior to the forum. They were reviewed and consolidated by our committee and have not been shared with the candidates. We appreciate those of you who took the time to submit the questions. This was the biggest response we have had in several years. The exact wording of your question may not be asked, but we tried to address the topics that generated the most questions. Due to time constraints, we are unable to cover all the questions. The format is designed by the League of Women Voters, and we follow the guidelines that they use. Each candidate will be given a 2-minute introduction. Questions will be directed to each candidate on a rotating basis, and each one will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. There is a timekeeper right in front here who will let them know when there is 1 minute and then 30 seconds, and then of course when time is up. This is not a debate, so there will be no rebuttals, and I'm asking each candidate to make your responses issue-oriented and not directed at any individual, especially another candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Our responsibility, please use the Speak Your Piece guidelines. They aren't posted up here anymore. There they are. And listen respectfully to the candidates. We ask that there be no comments, attacks, or applause during the forum. So, there are 3 individuals for the Rome Chair position. We have their names in front of each position there. And as I said, the primary election is on February 21st, and it will reduce the 3 down to 2 candidates who will go on the April 4th election ballot. The candidates are Lori Giamatti and Carl Hasdell and Phil McLaughlin. You will each have 2 minutes for the opening statement. So we'll start with Lori Giamatti first. 2 minutes.
Right, start now or, okay.
Opening statement.
All right, nearly 45 years since my family bought their first piece of land at Lake Arrowhead. We tent camped every weekend, purchased a neighboring lot and with a mobile that eventually became their retirement home. A home of fond and lasting memories which my retired husband and I now live in. We've been married 36 years, and we've been blessed to live in Rome full-time for 23 years now, having raised our son here in a home we built. Favorite pastimes include birding, wildlife watching, fishing, and traveling. I previously served as a Rome Town Board Supervisor from April 10th through 2010 through 2018 with board members I was proud to serve with, because although we didn't always agree, more often than not we were able to work together, sharing information and ideas for the greater good of building a strong Rome during good times, lean times, and ultimately the future. Rome did not become a billion-dollar community by accident. It took careful planning, visioning, and spending. I've always been committed and dedicated to building and sustaining a strong, respected community for the present and the future. I have experience, qualifications, and a willingness to always learn that is evidenced by the time I've invested on the issues, various committees, and visions for our community's future. I have leadership and volunteer experience that I can build on, including the Community Development Authority and the Plan Commission and the Adams County Board from 2010 to 2012. Adams County Board for almost 12 years. That's what I meant to say. Thank you.
A little bit of background. Oops, get this on. A little bit of background. I graduated from Roosevelt University with a BSBA and MBA in finance with honors. I had 3 years of drafting engineering and 2 years of architecture in high school and 2 years of architectural engineering in college, so it helps me see what's going on with the town. I was the director of marketing for a large wholesale retailer with full P&L responsibilities of over $750 million, consisting of sales, budgets, expenses, profits, and directed staffs up to 5,000 people. During the last 2 years on the Rome Town Board, we accomplished quite a few projects. I sat down and started listing our accomplishments and came up with 18 so far. Actually, I thought of a 19th one on the way here. Go to my website, votehasdell.org, for a complete list and explanation of all our accomplishments. Number one, we created an EMS district with 24/7, 365 paramedic service in Rome with a 2022 average response time of 7 minutes and 32 seconds, as opposed to a half an hour or more from Nakusa. Number two, we revised our brush and timber ordinance for your safety. Number three, we sent out over 550 brush and timber compliance letters to reduce our fire hazards. Really? A minute? Well, I'll speed it up. The original 5-year plan for timber and brush enforcement was completed in less than 2 years. I believe we sent out around 100 other code enforcement letters to help maintain your property values. I asked the board to move up the comprehensive plan from 2026 to 2021 to better control the land flipping and uncontrolled growth we've been seeing. I also asked the board to review the Gateway District and to include all commercial properties if possible. You're killing me. I received an email from a state road grant and gave it over to Jamie and Brad, and they turned it into a $570,000 grant for rebuilding 2 miles of Apache. I asked the board to create a grants subcommittee to research additional grants for our residents, business, and municipality. Seeing as Jamie's got her hands full with many other projects, she does a very good job. Using about $65,000 of ARPA funds, We Energies expanded our gas line in the southwest of town by about 23,000 feet. Okay, go to my website, see the rest of it. Thank you.
Okay, Phil McLaughlin, some of you probably know me. I moved to the town of Rome in 1998 with my mother. She came from Wapaka, where I originated. During that time when we moved here, she had just had a bout with pancreatic cancer, and she couldn't be alone anymore, so I had a duplex built in the town where I still live. And so she had her own home, but I was right there, and I had my own home. That's how I ended up here. Well, because I got the job here. I was a graduate of UWSP in 1997, a bachelor's degree in science. So then I moved on. I looked for work, ended up working for the town of Rome as the zoning administrator for 2 years. Then I put in and received the job at the Adams County Courthouse for the county planning and zoning director, and I took it. And I retired from there in June of 2019. And since then, I've stayed somewhat busy working different jobs. Well, I was town board chair from 2007 to 2017. Several of those years I was on the town planning commission. Also, I was a board member representative to the Tri Lakes Commissioners Board. Let's see, what else did I want to hit that's important? I didn't come with a list of any things. Actually, I didn't bring any written material at all because I think for me, I do a better job if I don't over prepare. So other than that, I guess all I can tell you about is I think I love the town of Rome. It's very unique. Anybody that's experienced it here, that. I'm not telling you anything. And alluded to earlier, it didn't get that way by accident. So it takes some diligent effort to keep things on the same track that people been on long before any of us were here. Thank you.
Thank you. The responsibilities of the town chair are spelled out in Wisconsin State Statute 60.24. So anybody that would like to look over what the job actually is, it's a big, long list. But some of them are to preside at all town and board meetings, sign all documents adopted or authorized by the town board, supervise the administration of the town operations, act on behalf of the board to see town orders and ordinances are obeyed, and to see that peace and order are maintained in a town. They also have to administer oaths, affidavits on town affairs, nominate individuals as election officials, sign orders for payment of work performed, enforce regulations of fireworks, approve bonds furnished by contractors for public works, serve as a member of the County Highway Committee, and appoint members to the Library Board, and many more jobs. So the first question will be answered by Carl. What is your view of the role of the chair, and what is the relationship of the chair to the town administrator?
We meet once a month and cover all the topics, and you covered maybe about 10% of what's really out there. It is chapter 60-24, and there's quite a bit in there. We do go over with what's going on in each department, but to be honest with you, my management style is like working. When I took over this position, I looked at all of our department heads and decided that all of them were very well qualified. So I don't get involved in day-to-day operations, but I do want to know overview of what's happening. To that end, one thing Jamie's going to be preparing for us is a quarterly operating statement. Basically, what we look at on a monthly basis are revenues and expenses without regards to where we're at to budget. So I've always been involved with budgets. So that's one of my main concerns. The other one is the chairman does work the agenda and control the meetings, and with that in mind, the chairman also has responsibility for bringing things to the board for their consideration. The chairman's not the sole vote. Everybody should know that. It's 5 members of the board here. So, killing me. The chairman also takes consideration of other people's concerns, what they have, and will present those at the board as needed. The chairman also needs to ensure that he's representing all the people of the town. And sometimes we appear like we're not, but keep in mind, we try and follow the law, even though it might be against our better judgment. We've had some occasion in the past where we've had to make decisions. May not like it, but legally it was the best way to go. And we have to operate in that respect. But I could go on and on, but I'm going to let it sit there right now.
Okay. Thank you. Phil?
Could you repeat the question, please?
What is your view of the role of the chair, and what is the relationship of the chair to the town administrator?
The role as chair, in my opinion, is, as you had mentioned in the introduction to the question, that the board itself has numerous responsibilities. The chair actually, of course, has some additional ones, and a lot of emergency situation things fall on the shoulders of the chair. The role of the chair also is to invite participation by your fellow supervisors and encourage it, as well as encouraging input from your citizens, because I've been in the work world long enough to know that to have an attitude where you don't think you need to hear from anybody else is a very poor way to proceed. I was the county zoning administrator for 20 years. Anytime I had a notion to change procedures, change things, our operational things in the department, we always had a staff meeting. And I ran my ideas past my staff to give them input, which they appreciated. And sometimes things were not pursued the way I initially intended because of that, because they have valuable things to offer. So I believe in that. I have always believed in that. I still believe in that getting thoughts and opinions from others is very important. The role with the town administrator, I would say this. Of course, when I started out as chairman, there was not a town administrator. I, of course, was on board when we got to that point that I thought we were ready for it. This town is just too unique with too many things going on. So I would say this. I think it's a good thing. I will say this to the point, and I'm not saying this is happening or anything. I'm just saying is should not be to the point where the town board gives up their responsibilities and assigns it to the town administrator, if that,
Okay.
everybody understands.
Okay, thank you. Lori?
Okay. Understand everything that Gina had said about what the town chair is responsible for, and that's evolved over the years, like every role has, being on a town board. I was on the same board that Phil was when we developed the role and encouraged the role of a town administrator, primarily for the continuity of government. And that is because every 2 years you have transition from board members that may have really radical ideas or maybe ideas that the town still likes. So that was to help us with our continuity of government. I believe as with other things, you know, it's been in, I think we've had that position now for a total of 7, maybe 8 years. It's worked well, and I like that position. I think it's important. I will always show, you know, I will always allow communication among all of the board members as your town chair and ideas, and have them be recognized for their value. And for board decisions to come from all of us for policy and financial decisions that are in the best interest of Rome. I won't expect privileged or private communications. If there are, those would be shared when they can be and lawfully with other town board members, so we can make the best decisions for the entire town. I would be transparent and have honest, straightforward discussions with all my fellow board members, our staff, and our community, so they know what is going on here at the town level and what decisions have to be made in the best interest of the town. So I do support that position, and I support collaboration among the board and the chair beyond what the chair is responsible by itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. There seems to be much concern about the road conditions in the town. Phil, you will be first to answer this. What can and will be done to address this?
Okay, I'm gonna back up briefly, something I don't like to necessarily do, and go back to when I took office in 2007. We had huge road issues and no money. So over time, we managed to get the roads back in shape. We managed to build up the coffers with money to do so. Every year, we had certain amounts and items addressed to be taken care of, and at one point in time at least, of course, you're never going to have all the roads perfect, but we were in pretty darn good shape, and people were happy, from the best that I can recollect and from what I heard. So that's definitely a primary issue. And only thing I can say is, for one thing, I don't make promises that, you know, whether you're chair or whatever, you're one person out of 5. I think I have leadership abilities in the past. I've shown them where we ended up making progress on several things. The roads are gonna have to be, of course, maintained and addressed, and to get there, I won't elaborate on what, but there are budgetary things that I think could be changed. The amount of money's lowered, and maybe if money's a problem, and I suspect it is, so you could focus more on roads, and maybe you need to back up and take a big look at where all the money's going. So I won't try to say that roads are actually, for this town, are very high on the list. In my opinion, one of the very high people expect to have decent roads. They came from places, most of them, where they had nice roads and roads were taken care of. Thank you.
I knew this one was going to come up, well prepared for it, and as Phil said, I'm one out of 5 as the chair, but communication is key, and we have to know what we have, and in order to manage one of the town's largest assets, we have to know what we have, and that's to create a viable maintenance program. In order to do that, I think we're at a point now with our roads where we reconstructed them once in the late 90s, resurfaced many of the primary roads in the 2000s when we did have money, did what we could when we had little or no money, and had extra money come in. I believe we've gotten to a point where we need an experienced firm to help us come in and create a true inventory and mapping of what conditions our roads are really in, meaning soil borings down to where they are, because they're crumbling to the point that if any more of them go any further, they might as well be gravel. And if we can only do 4 or 5 miles a year, in 30 years, most of our secondary roads will be gravel, because that's how they're getting. That's the condition they're in. I would say that with the information we've been provided currently on the board by the Public Works Director, we're doing what we can with what we have. But I do believe that if we did have an experienced firm come in and do that, which the Wisconsin Towns Association highly recommends it to towns in situations such as ourselves, that we would structure a capital improvement plan for those roads, and we'd have to seriously consider borrowing. And borrowing is not where it was before. The interest rates have gone up, but it's one of those things that you can't avoid not borrowing for anymore. So that is one thing that we would have to consider. Grants are a great source of unexpected funding, but we have to be practical, and they in and of themselves are tricky. You get them, you don't get them. What do they require? Is there in-kind services? There's a lot that goes into getting grants, and it's a commendable way to look for extra money. But the funding we could get is still at a low interest rate through the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands. The interest rates have gone up since May, when I first was elected back onto the board. I wanted to borrow and talk about serious road improvements. We haven't had a chance to really do that. A portion of the repayment would go to local schools if we funded that way. Thank you.
Carl?
I have to agree with Phil too, and unfortunately, when times are tough, one of the first things to get cut is roads, and it's happened in the past. When we took over 2 years ago, the first question I asked our board supervisors, I wanted at the next meeting the top 3 priority items. We came back, we had discussions, and we all agreed roads was number 1. We were fortunate last year to start receiving ARPA funds, so with the ARPA funds, we went ahead and applied a good portion of those to the roads. We brought road projects that were scheduled for 2023 into 2022, had them done last year. We applied this year for ARPA funds again to the roads. We have roads that were scheduled to work on in 2024 will now be worked on this year. Again, we got the grant for $570,000 to redo 2 miles of Apache. The grants are out there. We got to look for them. That's one of the reasons I started up a grant subcommittee, asked the board to do it. We did it, just to find what else is out there. There's grants all over the place, but we are limited as far as personnel to go and find those. With that in mind, too, we also decided to, what was that, 1 minute? Okay. We did buy a mastic machine. We were paying $25,000 a mile to have the mastic machine used by a contractor. We went and bought our own at the request of the Public Works superintendent. The machine cost $50,000. You can see the payback in that is extremely short, probably 4 or 5 years. The material's very inexpensive, but with that mastic machine, we're going to go ahead and move forward with getting a lot more roads done. We also hired another Public Works person this year to work basically on the roads. The mastic machine's I believe it takes 3 or 4 people to operate it, but you're going to see a lot more activity with that this year. The roads are in rough shape still, but you'll notice that folks are trying to get caught up on it. We had Apache right there by 13 really crumbled. I called Jamie, asked her what's going on there. Found out that road was built in 1997. So they did a cold patch, and they're going to go back and see if we can do more later this year.
Thank you. Questions were raised about zoning issues, and Lori, you will be first on these. The short-term rentals have been increasing dramatically. How are they being controlled and monitored? And do you want both at the same time, or do you want separate questions? The other part of the zoning question is, do you support active or complaint-driven enforcement of zoning ordinances?
Okay.
The
Can we break
short-term
that into
rentals.
two? Could we break it into 2? Is that an option?
Sure, we can.
You said active. The second part was active.
I'll ask it after
All
you
right, thank
finish,
you.
and we'll start another round. Short-term rentals, that's a big one with a lot of people, so.
So the first part of that was short. How were we monitoring those?
How do you control and monitor short-term rentals?
Okay. So currently, short-term rentals are controlled and monitored. First of all, it's stated to us by law that we have to allow them and how we can control them. But there are some things that we can put into place, which is further regulations. They're here to stay, unfortunately, for some people, but they can be a good addition to our community because they bring in additional tax funds for us through the sales tax at the county level, which hopefully we can convince our county leaders at another time to share some of that with us because they're getting more and more. I had forced the issue of further regulations when I did get on the Plan Commission, and I'm excited to say that the commissioners are looking at that already. It's on our agenda to take that under review, and we allow this process to even become more refined by creating a checklist for our zoning administrator, the town attorney, and the town administrator when they're working on the conditional use permits for our short-term rentals. But one of the ways that we believe that we can manage these in the future, and we will be reviewing further, is through density, ensuring that enforcement then of our laws is priority. And when I say density regulation, if you live on a street and your home is the only full-time residence and 6 other ones are short-term rentals, how does that affect your value? Can we limit it that way? Other communities have done this, and so we'll be pursuing that. Thank you.
Okay. You're set, Carl. We want you to get the full 2.
As far as the short-term rentals go, we are required by state law to allow them. But I do want to caution people that we better understand what the laws are in the state and what our responsibilities are. There was a case brought just recently, it's Black v. Lake Geneva, where Lake Geneva was trying to limit the short-term rentals. They charged $2,000 for a license. They required a 24-hour available key, basically for anytime inspection of these properties, and a few other things that happened. Well, they were sued by Black, and long story short, they ended up lowering their fee down to $750, and since then they've lowered it to $400. So we can make some changes on these, but again, you got to understand the role of the chairman and the board. We have to do it within the confines of the law. When the law states or thinks you're going ahead and being too restrictive, you're going to be in trouble. So rather than go through the lawsuits and the other processes, we want to make sure we do what's right when it's possible on the front side. Concerning the enforcement, it is right now it's complaint driven for the short-term rentals. We do have inspections going on there. It is building inspector and the fire inspector check it. One of the things I did ask Jamie was if instead of the planning commission going through the whole process, I said, well, could Emily do it? Because it's simply a matter of checking off and making sure everything's okay. Her response was that basically we have it go through the planning commission to let the people know it's important to us. If they screw up, we're going to be on them. Actually, I just gave them a phone call on Sunday. I went and checked out a property from a complaint from a resident, and sure enough, they were in violation. So they were notified as of Monday. So it is complaint driven. We'll do the best we can to control it, but again, you can't stop it, but we'll do the best we can to control it.
Yes, short-term rentals. Been dealing with that obviously for many years at the county level, and at the town level as a member of the town board. It's like anything. It can be good for everybody and it can be bad. Personally, my opinion hasn't changed for many years. I don't know as I would care to live in a subdivision and not know who my neighbor is going to be on a potentially weekly basis. I don't know as I'd like that. But then again, that's like anything, there's a handful that spoil it for everybody. Not all short-term renters are disregarding of their neighbors or anything. So but it's a fact of life. And yes, the state has said you cannot just say no. But you can, when I worked at the county ed, I made an exhaustive potential use of conditions for my plan committee. So not everyone would apply to every property, but that would only make sense because sometimes you're going to have a short-term rental on a half-acre lot. The next one might be in 15, 20 acres, and the scenarios are different. The needs are different. So that's where careful consideration you need in what conditions you place. Since you have no choice to allow them, that's where you need to do your policing. And when I hear somebody propose from a petitioner to do deed restrictions or covenants, trust me, from working with this for so many years, those are useless. Covenants are only as good as the people living in the area are willing to pay to enforce them. That goes anywhere. So so that's not worth anything to even consider that. Other than that, again, top consideration, I think when conditions are placed, just to keep thinking of the neighbors.
The other part of that question was any zoning issues. Do you support active complaint-driven enforcement of zoning ordinances, or do you support having somebody on patrol see something and report it, or does it need to be complaint-driven? What do you support? And we're starting with Carl on this one.
Several years ago, my wife and I attended some board meetings, and we asked about zoning and ordinance enforcement, and we were told that basically you do it. They'll pass an ordinance for a feel good or whatever, but you have to enforce it, and that just always stuck in my craw. We have zoning ordinances and standard ordinances and other codes out there. That is a function of the town, in my opinion. We did, again, 950 letters went out for the timber and brush ordinance. I don't think the town's done anything of that nature in the past. We did, again, close to 100 for other ordinance violations out there. Many of them I originated. Some of them we had our person from the Air Force that actually was freed of the town for doing all the code enforcement. She went out and found quite a few other items out there, such as double sheds, items left on camping lots that aren't supposed to be there, and whatnot. So it's, as far as complaint driven, that's fine, but we need somebody to do that. To that end, the police department is hiring an additional officer this year. His title will be community service officer, but he will be responsible for some code enforcement, not necessarily everything, and also additional boat patrols. So we're looking into that, and from my point of view, it's our job, not yours. Thank you.
Loaded question. First of all, if you're gonna do non-complaint driven service, in other words, the department actively search out and find and write up violations, better be prepared to hire some more people. Depending, where are you gonna start and where are you gonna stop? I mean, are you gonna look everything that's a violation, is that gonna be on the table? I can say this, from working in this stuff for so many years, if you pick and choose the things that are gonna be, you're gonna be in trouble. Somebody's gonna call you on that. So it's like, well, okay, we're gonna address all of it. It's our job. Again, staffing is gonna be a problem because, and then there's a ton of work in that, because you can't, just because let's say you drive by a building, well, I can see that's too close to the lot line. Well, there's more to it than that. How long has it been there? Is it a violation, or is it non-conforming? There's a big difference. Non-conforming it means it's okay, it's legal. So it's a huge undertaking if you're gonna do it that way. My time at the county, I periodically would talk with my committee, and they always wanted my department to do a complaint driven. However, they were always under the understanding, my committee was by me, that if any one of us sees a serious health type hazard or issue or something, no, you're not going to wait for a complaint, you're going to deal with that. But the things that are further down on the scale of seriousness, yeah, well, because I didn't have the manpower either to even begin to think about doing that, that was left to a complaint driven system. I mean, realistically, maybe most of us would like something better, but also realistically, that's very difficult to do. So I guess that's enough said.
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. Again, they're here to stay, good or bad. We have to make the best of it. It does bring, as I said, money into our communities, to our local businesses, our small business owners. as well as entrepreneurs that are looking to build a business here. As I said, we at the Plan Commission came up with a form in addition with the CDA and agreed to that form to make this process easier in-house for our staff, our zoning administrator, so that the approval process at the Plan Commission did not take up most of our time when it comes to real zoning, really hard, difficult zoning issues that we have to deal with. As far as it being complaint driven, right now we have an active service that we pay for, that we use our tourism money for, that tax dollars I believe isn't necessarily funding. It comes out of our percentage of the tax dollars to help us monitor those people that are having issues with their neighbors that have short-term rentals. That can help us govern and make sure that if these people are not in compliance or are doing something wrong that are impacting their neighbors, we can find them. They get tickets. If they're written up or they repeat offenders, they're basically out of the systems and can't do short-term rentals any longer. The community policing officer will be assisting with code enforcement, and that's only one aspect of it. So I don't know that we can get away from a completely complaint-driven type system. Our community policing officer is also going to be helping us with boating regulations. So there is no way that that person, or do we have the staff to do it solely by, it is our responsibility, but we need other resources, and by paying that firm to help us, I think that's a good partnership to have.
Okay, thank you. All right, and this one will be started by Phil. What can you do as chair to encourage and promote good working relationships amongst the board and the town staff?
Okay, I guess I'll go back to something I said just a bit earlier. Communication is very big. Listening to your staff and active listening, I guess I'll put it even more blunt like that. So you're actually considering what they're saying and why they're telling you, and trying to find out if you don't understand some of it, keep at it until you do. That I think is key, first of all, in line. The another thing I should say is staff and board also, always being well aware of their responsibilities. Staff has, of course, their own. Many of the staff that work for the town are salaried. So being a salaried person for many years, I'm fully aware of what that means. Oftentimes it means you're certainly going to be working more than 40 hours a week. So just keep the relationship stronger with staff. I would still just reiterate, I think the beginning thing is communication and support, and also the need to be direct if and when that time arises, so that everybody is on the same playing court and everybody understands. And especially to the public, where the public gets involved, because obviously, let's not forget, that's why we're all here. Staff and board alike is to serve the public. Everybody has to be mindful of that all the time. And maybe are we doing something that is perceived by the public to be like, why in the world are you doing that, or why in the world are you not doing something else? So I know the town. Thank you.
Lori?
Could you just please ask the question again, Jean?
What can you do as a chair, to encourage and promote good working relationships amongst the board and the town staff?
Okay. I'd start that with saying that, again, communications between myself and the town staff as chair and all board members will have access that we need to complete our work, and make sure that we clearly communicate that to one another so we know what we're doing. As your chair, I'd also be transparent and have honest, straightforward communications with our fellow board members and staff on all issues that they are expected to work on, or that we have to make policy or financial decisions for. We need to build trust in our town organization, because only trust can help you be a good organization and provide the services for those we serve. We rely on our employees to provide everything we ask them to, and they should be able to rely on their town leaders for transparent and honest communications. And that's pretty much, I believe the town board needs to work closely with themselves and of course, understanding that there's walking quorums. We all know the law if we've served in these positions long enough, that we work with our town administrator and our staff to develop and adopt real plans for the future of the town. And that, again, takes trust, communication, and depending on one another, we are a team and we're here to work for the sake of the community.
As I've said, I've worked with up to 5,000 people at a time. One of the things you want to make sure you're doing is stay out of their hair. You know, we have a zoning administrator here, we have a town administrator here, and she is responsible for those folks. I do let the folks know that the door's always open, communication's always open. They have anything they want to talk to me about, it's there. As far as working through the intricacies of the job, the board decides the policies and move forward with all that. They give it to the town administrator, and she's the one that enforces all that. If you start getting too involved with the staff, be it the department heads or even further down the line, you're going to just cause chaos. There's going to be things that the administrator may not trust you, might be thinking you're working on the back. I've been through this all before, folks. You want to make sure that you have a line of command and that you follow that. If you have something that's out of place, you handle that right away. When I first took over, I found out that they do have a training here for the folks as far as diversity and harassment. It was a book thing, they had to read that. I said, we're not doing that. We're going to hire somebody. We brought somebody in and did one-on-one, it was training with a group, but it was a person that came in and explained all these policies to them. That's the kind of things you need to do to make sure that everything's happening the way you want it to happen. They understand the goals from the get-go. Again, you got to have confidence in your team, and I've got confidence in all the managers we have here. They're all a great bunch of people. I wouldn't trade one of them for anybody else. And I also like to let them go and see what they come up with ideas. I don't have all the best ideas. I have some, but I do like to sit back and watch, let them loose, and see what they come back with. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Lori will be starting on these. Water quality is another important topic that garnered several questions. So we kind of put them together and said, what is your vision for working effectively with Tri-Lakes Management, 14 Mile Watershed Alliance, the Packers, and Adams Land and Water to work on a comprehensive plan to improve water quality, which is Rome's greatest asset? What concrete actions will you support to improve and restore those water bodies? So how will you work with the groups that are already working with water, and what concrete action can you as a chair support to improve and restore our water bodies?
Okay, concrete action
I apologize, Lori, before you start, for all three, can you move the mics closer? We're live broadcasting this, and we've had a lot of comments that it's hard to hear. So just speak direct and make sure that your red light is on.
Yeah. So what did I,
Water quality,
yes.
working with the groups.
Yeah, water is very important. I understand that always did. According to the public trust doctrine, it belongs to all of us. But as a town and a town board and town staff, we are required by law to provide certain things, and that's infrastructure, public safety, and there's a few other things on that list. Water quality is important, and it's important that we stay involved as a town board, but we cannot necessarily take a leading role on this. That's why you have Tri-Lakes Management. You pay an extra tax on your tax bill if you're in the Tri-Lakes Management District, and you also pay a percentage of that. The lakes are important to us, but that's not the only important thing in the town of Rome. We are growing as a town with a lot of important features. Water is important, and it belongs to all of us. Rome has educated resources at Tri-Lakes. They have an incredible body of volunteers in the 14 Mile Creek Watershed Group that is now out on their own. They should have regular access to the county and the DNR regarding these water concerns. We should stay update and responsibly knowledgeable for them, but we cannot necessarily take a leadership role. We have too many other things we are responsible for as your town board. The Tri-Lakes collects your additional funding, and they have a lake management plan for water quality issues, and they are the ones best trained, and I commend them for the services and the work that they're doing, and and if that's where their interests lie, people's interests lies as leaders, then that's where their work should be focused. But leave town responsibilities and town work to the town board supervisors and a town chair. The two cannot always be intermingled. At the September meeting, Tri-Lakes had over $360,000 in excess revenue that they do have, I guess, spending planned for, but they do have the money. We don't have that, and if we do, it's going towards the roads and other things that we may need. And, okay, is that time? Thank you.
Okay. Carl?
Actually, I know a little bit about this. I've been on the Tri-Lakes board for 5 years. I've been chairman for the last 2. When I came on the board, their major job was to make sure the weeds were trimmed in the lake, and that was pretty much it. If you read statute 33, which I did, you'll find out that you have a lot more responsibility than that. And to that end, when I became chairman, we started changing things. First thing I did was push that we hire an outside engineering firm. We did. It was Hay & Associates out of Illinois, but they didn't really meet our needs. Last year, we hired a group called the EOR out of Minnesota. They're engineers, they're professionals. These guys have already been turning things around. They're looking at data that was recorded back in the 2000s, back in the 70s, and we did recent soil borings a year ago, February. We also did a few more borings in August, and these guys have been coming up with new solutions and answers to some of the questions that were raised back in 2000. We're understanding more and more where the chemicals are coming from and how they're infiltrating the lakes and what we can do to combat them. I'm going to give you a real quick short story, but one of the mantras I picked up from a colonel in a meeting years ago was he did a project, and at the end of the meeting he says, "We didn't know we couldn't do it, so we did it." That's what I've been up against with Tri-Lakes. We've been spending money to get things done. EOR. We are now doing alum treatments this year in Sherwood. We get approval from the DNR, and that's going to strip the phosphates out of the water column. We're also looking to do some aeration. We're also looking to do some other testing. We're using ultrasound, and we're testing everything we can find out there. I'm pushing people to find new technologies and see what else is available. We joined the Water Council, which is a huge group out of Milwaukee. They deal with about 500 companies around the world coming with new technologies. So we do have some money. We're looking to spend it, but we don't want to waste it. But we are going to be turning us around, even though they said we couldn't do it.
Thank you. You ready? Okay, Phil?
Yes, thank you. Water quality, yes, that issue's been around for a long, long time. When I spent my years that I did, I don't remember which ones they were, as a town board member of Tri-Lakes, I was very vocal often about a lot of things. One of them also was what was being done and not being done about water quality. For the years I sat on Tri-Lakes, I don't know how often I brought it up. I brought it up at annual meetings too. Decades. They got closets and decades of data. When are you going to think about doing something with it? That used to just irk me no end. You just keep collecting all of this stuff, but you're not doing anything with it. So I think finally, certainly I didn't have the impetus to by myself make anybody, but I think I made a few people open their eyes and realize that just collecting the fact that you got problems is not helping. So other than that, when the state is largely responsible for a lot of this things deteriorating, because at the county, even when my department was trying to do things to improve water quality, well, the state pulled the rug out from under all 72 counties with a lot of things. So even to this day, you can put your septic drain field 50 feet from your lake, but you can't build the house that close. So I don't know. I don't know what book they got that out of, but it's a fact. So, and I do think the town should take a leadership role in water quality. They should and continue to. Certainly you want to have active groups involved with you, but I think the town board needs to back all of those and show their support when need be financially when possible, and in representation. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, and Carl starts on the next one. Concerning the Rome Town Center, would a municipal sanitary system in the Rome Town Center be feasible, and would it help to bring in more businesses and recreational opportunities?
Sure it
Carl?
would. Who's gonna pay for it?
Yep.
It was brought up a while ago, and we were looking at price tags of 5 million or plus. The engineers involved said they had 5 properties that actually could convert to it right away. 2 of the board members and myself said, we don't think the people should pay for it. It should be supported by the business park itself. Excuse me, Rome Town Center. 3 of those buildings were town properties. So technically 2 buildings they were looking at 2 buildings to support it. They wouldn't do it. So it is on permanent hold. Will it bring business in? Sure it would. On the CDA about 5-6 years ago, we were also presented with this. We were looking at a pout system at the time, and I believe it was around $700,000 for the pouts, which is basically a large septic field. So, but we decided that was a little expensive, and I guess that's grown to 1.5 million at this point. So, would it bring people in? Yeah. Can we afford it at this point? No. I'm going to leave it go at that. It's right now it's too expensive.
Want you to have your full 2 minutes.
I don't think I'll need it either, but are you ready?
She's ready
Well,
for that.
all right. While I was on the town board chair back when, I personally looked into that very thing about a municipal wastewater system, the practicality of it, and happened know a little bit something about that kind of thing, because I had different items in college that related directly to that. Plus, I know people at DNR, and I talked to them about it. Before I even talked to DNR, I knew that if you're going to put one up there, if anybody knows anything about wastewater facilities, the first thing you need is a readily available moving water source to discharge into. Well, you have it with, I always forget the name of that creek, but you have it right there. So, I mean, that's feasible. I checked with DNR. I suspect, and this is going back several years. And again, sure, there's going to be some cost to it, but you'd have to outweigh, I mean, several things were looked at. Piping it all the way to the rapids. I mean, you talk about cost prohibitive. So there's ways to it. Personally, I know everything has gone up, but if you're going to do something just for the park, probably looking at a facility that you can get a discharge permit to in that water body that's already there would be the way to go. I don't know what, other than to add to that, a complicated, I mean, that's what it is. Septic systems, obviously, that's what you've got in there all over. And be honest with you, I thought by now DNR would have forced municipal systems in the town of Rome. I think if business as usual would have carried on with DNR, it would have happened. But over the several years, I watched it at the county at so many levels, they backed off of things and just, you know.
Okay.
Would you please read the question again?
Read the question again.
Yes, please.
Concerning the Rome Town Center, would a municipal sanitary system in the Rome Town Center be feasible, and would it help to bring in more business, recreational opportunities?
Feasible at this time, no. I commend our town administrator and our engineering firm, General Engineering, for providing this current board and previous town boards. When we didn't have an administrator, it was just 5 of us up here trying to figure out what to do because the system hadn't been built when the park was originally conceived of and installed. The only thing it might bring us is a hotel, but at this time I agreed with the current board that we should table it. It's not willing to borrow or create an undue burden for our taxpayers, and putting that whole entire financial burden on the current residents that have brand new systems in the park was a concern of mine as well. It doesn't seem to be deterring any small business owners from building. We have a number of successful ones already, and they continue to build. Again, the only thing we may be missing is a hotel, and that's a chicken and an egg thing, and I'm not willing to do that with taxpayer dollars. We put it in, and hopefully you'll come. No, you commit to us, we'll consider it. Maybe there's other areas for that. The cost of installation to those Rome Town Centers occupants, like I said, with their systems being relatively new or brand new, due to newer construction, just didn't seem feasible. And maybe once the time passes, it'll be time to explore again as those, as growth continues, gets larger, the demand is bigger, and those existing systems age and would require some sort of placement, or possibly 10, maybe 15 years down the road, as our general engineering firm told us, the DNR might step in, but I think they have other things to do, like water quality issues around the state. We could explore it at that time, and possibly funding through a TID, which is a tax incremental finance tool that we could use for such a type of infrastructure that doesn't put such a big burden on our taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and the last question here is, and Phil will start it. What is your vision for the town of Rome's future in 5 years? What do you see happening within five years from now? What is your vision?
Let's see. I guess what I would say is that the town remain vigilant in the types of activities that we pursue to cite in the town of Rome. What I refer to by that is, long before I ever came here, the town of Rome did not wish to have heavy industry, heavy agriculture. They didn't. That was established before I got here, so I had nothing to do with that. And then anybody that was with me, we had nothing to do with that. That was the attitude here, and I think it's served the town well. And I think that vision and that path needs to be maintained and continued, and you always have to be, on guard and watch whatever you're being proposed by somebody wanting to come in, and make sure you're getting what you think you're getting, number one. Again, I would continue encouraging the types of activities this town has brought. The Sand Valley, my opinion is there are some people, of course, that were extremely against that when they came and talked to us. Lake Arrowhead people, well, they're going to kill us. Well, no, the fact is they're not. They're probably going to help you prosper, because people come to play one golf course, and I'm not a golfer anymore. I haven't been for years. But if they come to play Sand Valley, they're probably going to go to Century World. They're probably going to go to Arrowhead's courses. They're probably going to go to Northern Bay. So this type of thing isn't going to hurt you. It's going to help you. And if there was a way to collect the data, there probably is. I think that you could easily bear that out, that's a fact. And again, the types of users this town wants, that's what's been happening, and you're getting them. You're getting people to go out on a limb to some degree in the business park. I mean, these people, their business is open maybe half the year, they're taking a bit of a gamble, and you got to appreciate that.
Ready? Lori?
Okay. My vision for the next, at least the next 5 years, is that we would maintain our rustic charm as best as we possibly can, while understanding controlled growth and allowing some sort of growth that complements our community, such as golf courses or anything recreational, be it, a small business owner with a mini golf course, a new restaurant, or some other recreational activity. We should look towards having those come into our community and allowing land use for those types of activities, as well as additional housing for the different types of housing needs that are now arising. Rather than seeing so many new subdivisions go in with one certain type of housing, we have to think of the workers. Sand Valley is going to need another 800 workers this year. Some of them may stay on for year-round employment. Our small businesses in the town center will need workers. Where are they going to live? They all can't afford expensive homes of the $250,000, $300,000 range. Additional vision for the future would be collaborations, understanding and nurturing our various partners, be it Rapids Angels and Tri-North for the lands that we have and share and lease from one another at Syracuse, expanding the opportunities there, possibly with a campground and focusing camping in that area. Local businesses, collaborations with the Sand Valley as they continue to grow and add more golf courses, which then add more demands on our current infrastructure. Visit Rome, our own destination marketing organization. We continue supporting them as well as the money that they are so generously infusing back into the community with our partnerships. So all to promote economic growth and pump vital monies into our coffers in one form or another, and that we just have more communication, more enthusiasm, get to a place of excitement as things grow, and remember that someday we'll be gone and our children or somebody else will be here to enjoy the community we left behind. Thank you.
Okay. This one's actually kind of easy. I've been thinking about this from day one, being on the board here. First thing I did was ask Jamie to bring in Ellers, they're our accountants that keep track of Sand Valley. It's a private company, so we don't see their books, but they do. And they come back with recommendations. I asked her to check out and give us an estimate of what Ellers would be worth about in 2027. 2027 is when they expect to pay off that TIF. And all that money will be accretive to our tax base. 2028 will be a full year of funds coming into our tax base. And I'd like to start planning ahead of how to handle those funds so we're not out there spending money like drunken sailors. Rome Water also has two debts coming due, one in 2025, one in 2027. It's about $300,000 a year spend. That'll be, hopefully we can look at other ways to cut back some of the costs from Rome Water. I'm thinking if it's possible, we'd have to apply to the commission, but maybe lower that fire service charge that's out there on everybody. A few other things are there. The comp plan is one of the reasons I did look at that. We had campgrounds coming in, we had flag lots, we had all sorts of stuff going on because our ordinances weren't specific. So that's why I asked the comp plan and our the strategic plan as well as the gateway. Let's bring those forward now and start looking at them, see what we've got to do to fix them so we have controlled growth. We can't stop it, but let's see if we can control it, see if we can have it, keep our atmosphere here as best we can. So I've been working on it already, so I don't need the 30 seconds. That's good enough. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We are now, that's all the questions that were submitted, so we are at the closing statements. And Lori, you will start them.
All right. Just want a closing statement, that's it?
You have 2
Okay.
minutes to cover anything that wasn't covered with the questions and answers we already had.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, so what you could expect from me as your chair, I will always be present and focused on providing reliable and enthusiastic leadership for the entire evolving and thriving community we love as Rome. I will always allow all opinions and ideas to be recognized for their value, ultimately impacting our board decisions and for financial and policy in the best interest of our town we love, Rome. And all board members and staff and everybody will have the information they need to help us grow for the future. I'll be fiscally conservative with your tax dollars and budget those monies wisely with my fellow board members and our staff's recommendations under the TA's leadership. I will invest in the town infrastructure to ensure Rome's sustainability. I'll ask that the town board works with the TA and staff to develop and adopt real capital improvement plans for all departments, including us town-wide. I will also make sure that we work together to make decisions that are fiscally responsible, vested in our roads primarily, public safety, and balanced growth. A hands-off approach in business doesn't always work in government. Water should be in our line of vision, but it should not be our main focus. And I am looking forward to the opportunity to serve you as a town chair. Thank you.
Okay, Carl?
Wanted to finish up a few things too. We were talking about the code enforcement a while ago, and one of the things, you're driving down the road and somebody flashes their lights, you know there's an officer sitting up there, you get a ticket, everybody knows there's an officer sitting there, you're gonna get a ticket if you're speeding or whatever. Well, code enforcement will have a never-ending effect. On the reverse side of that, if you don't enforce your codes, people are gonna see, oh, I can do it. They see a trailer there, it's been grandfathered in, but they don't understand that the code says, there's nowhere in our code that says that trailer has to be off by a certain date. What it says is you can't camp between certain dates. Then there's another code that says you have to, you're only allowed 2 items on your lot over the winter, camping lots. And that would be a picnic table and I believe two trailers. It never says anywhere that the camper has to be off there. Our new camping permit, I believe for 2023, will state on there, campers must be off. Again, code enforcement, we have to do it. If we don't do it, things go to hell. Sorry about the language, but people see things happening. They see 2 sheds on a lot. Oh, I can have 2 sheds. We got rid of 3 of them over that I know of just in our code enforcement in the last year. They see other things out there happening. We had hot tubs on camping lots. We had all sorts of things. We're doing this for your safety. We're doing it for your house values, home values. If you don't enforce the codes, it gets bad. Hopefully you have noticed what we've done with the timber. We still got work to do. We're not done. We got more to do in the town. We got to look at the common areas. We got to look at the town-owned properties, the county-owned properties. And we got to get after that. Safety is a big thing. So that's one of the things we're going to keep going on. The other thing, as far as the employees here, I have asked the folks here, what do we have to do? What does the board need to do to make your job easier or help you with your job? We've asked that, and we've gotten some responses back, and we'll continue to do that. Again, I work through the Jamie and say hi to all the folks in here. They're always free to come see me, talk to me on anything they want, confidential or whatever. That's the way it's been. It's open door. Thank you.
I don't think I have a whole lot to close with. I would say a comment regarding grants. Very important, has been stated. They're very important to any municipality, especially as days go on because of the lack of funds and the price of things. As far as that goes, the grants, most people that are going to apply for a grant are salaried people. So that's part of your job. It was part of mine when I worked at the county. If you were gonna fulfill, properly, in my opinion, so I guess I'll leave that as just stated what I said. If you're salaried, it's not a 40-hour week typically. More often than not, it's more than that. Zoning violations, I'm sure that's a hot topic and will continue to be. I try not to repeat my comments from before, but it's a tough animal to deal with, depending on where you want to go, and you always, depending on which path you take, there could be consequences, and some of them not so good. So I always just say tread lightly, when the board, if they face that in the future, where they're going to start to set parameters on where you're going to go with that, just do it carefully. The only thing else I guess I got to say is I would be very pleased to be the town board chair once again. The good people had me in office for 10 years, from 2007 to 2017. I'd be a liar if I said it was all fun, but we all know that's part of the terrain. But again, I would really love to be the town board chair once again. And thank you.
Well, I would like to thank the candidates for coming today to present to such a nice group that showed up here, and hopefully many more at home. I would also like to remind the people at home that you can review this. It'll be rebroadcast on Channel 300. You go to the Town Rome's website, and then click on live feed, Channel 300 live feed, and you'd be able to see that. And it will be rebroadcast from March 24th all the way through April 3rd at noon and 8 p.m. And you can also, Jamie has worked out the connection through YouTube. So if you go to the website, the home page, you have a connection to YouTube, and you may view this forum there too. So your neighbors who didn't bother to come out today, invite them to watch it that way and be able to make an informed decision on February 21st, which is the primary day. The spring election will be on April 4th, the first Tuesday in April. The Rollmakers are going to sponsor another voters forum for all the supervisors, the school board candidates, and the town chair on March 23rd, and that'll be an evening one starting at 6 o'clock. So we hope people will come to that one too and become an informed voter. So thank you very much for everybody coming.
Thank you for hosting this, and thank you everybody for coming.
You guys gonna hang around a little? Okay, the candidates will hang around a little bit if you wanna come up and talk to any of them.